Let's assemble a Powermatic PM2000 table saw. First, remove the protective coating on the cast iron parts. Lots of solvents will work, but I like to use mineral spirits. Old socks are optional. Be sure to remove the protective coating from the sides to ensure a good connection to the extension wings. Those will require a cleaning as well. Attach an extension wing to each side using 3 3/8" hex head screws with lock washers and flat washers. If working alone, it's easiest to hold the wing vertically with one hand while attaching the screw with the other hand. Now you can rotate the extension wing and install the remaining 2 screws. Snug up the screws just enough to level the wing, then use a straight edge and a dead blow hammer or mallet to bring the extension in line with the rest of the top. Align the front first, then tighten up the bolt just a little bit more. Now align the back and tighten up that bolt a little bit more. Use your fingers to confirm the surfaces meet cleanly at the joint, and give a few taps here or there as needed. Once you're happy with the alignment, tighten down all 3 screws. Repeat this process for the second extension wing. Install the lock knobs and swivel handles into the hand wheel. Tighten the swivel handle with a 14mm wrench. There are a few things inside the cabinet that you'll need to remove, including the power switch, the miter gauge, and the blade guard. You might need to change the bevel angle of the saw to access some of the parts. Unbox the power switch, but leave it hanging for now. Now let's install the rails. We don't need the guide tube just yet, but let's clean it up and remove the bag of bolts from inside. The larger front rail is installed at the front of the saw using 1/4-20, 1.5" long flathead screws. Note that the first hole in the rail is unused. The screws are then secured from the underside of the table with lock washers, flat washers, and nuts. Finger tighten only at this point. The rail needs to be parallel to the tabletop in order for the fence to function properly, so use an adjustable square to confirm. Set it to 2 27/32 as a starting point, and make sure it's even all the way across the rail. Snug up the screws completely using a screwdriver and a 10mm wrench. The back rail is installed with 2 5/16" by 7/8" long Hex Cap Screws, lock washers, and flat washers into pre-tapped holes. Confirm parallel with the tabletop across the entire length and tighten the screws with a 12mm wrench. Now let's install the extension table. With the table upside down, drive 9 M5 by 16 wood screws through the holes in the frame. Now take out the vise components and mount vise face 1 to the steel frame using 5/16" by 2" long socket head cap screws, 4 washers, and 2 nuts. Check to make sure the top of the vise block is flush with the top of the extension table. Insert the vise assembly through the holes in vise face 2 and then through vise face 1. Rotate the handle to thread the screw into the bracket. Make sure the faces are flush and secure the vise using 2 M5 by 30 wood screws. Drop a leg into each corner and secure with 2 socket head button screws and serrated flange nuts. Hand tighten only. Connect the 2 legs with a cross brace and secure with 2 socket head button screws through the legs and into the threaded holes in the brace. Tighten these screws securely. Now fully tighten the 4 flange nuts already installed in the 2 legs. Add a hex nut to each adjustable foot and thread them into the bottom of each leg. Carefully turn the assembly over and position it between the rails. This is easiest with 2 people, but if you're working alone, clamp a piece of wood on the underside of the rails and that'll make it a lot easier. Push the extension against the saw table and then further secure the table with 2 more clamps. Raise the far end of the table and insert 6 1/4-20 by 1.5" flathead screws, starting with the outermost hole. Secure with a flat washer, lock washer, and nut from the inside. Finger tight only. To secure the rear rail, insert 6 5/16 by 1.5" long hex head screws through the rail and the table and secure with flat washers, lock washers, and nuts. Finger tight again. With the screws in place, you can remove the clamps as needed. Now extend the adjustable feet to support the weight of the table. Use blocks of wood as shims if you have a significant slope to deal with like I do. With the guide tube serving as a straight edge, Adjust the table as necessary to make it even with the saw table. Tighten all of the screws in the front and rear rails securely. The extension table itself might not be flat. As you can see, mine has a dip in the middle. Using the supplied shims, remove the screws holding the table to the frame and insert the shims where needed, then replace the screws. There might be a little bit of trial and error at this point, but remember, the extension wing doesn't need to be dead flat. Slide the vise handle into the hub and secure the two caps using two M3 16 wood screws. Attach the guide tube to the front rail using 8 1/4-20 by 3/4 inch hex cap screws and lock washers. The two leftmost holes are reserved for attaching the power switch. Keep everything finger tight and then pull back on the guide tube. Measure the distance between the guide rail and the guide tube and make it the same on both ends of the rail. Tighten all screws with a 10mm wrench. Now bring in the AccuFence to the saw and drop it on the rail. Screw in the handle and check the gap under the fence. This is preset at the factory, but you can always recalibrate using the provided shims. Now let's make the fence parallel to the miter slot. Lock the fence a few inches away from the miter slot. Using an adjustable square, check the distance from the slot to the fence and lock it in. Check at the far end of the fence and see if an adjustment needs to be made. If so, lift the fence off the rail and make the necessary adjustment to one of the two set screws with a 5mm hex wrench. Lock the fence in again a few inches from the miter slot and repeat the measurement. Repeat this process until the fence is parallel with the miter slot. Now check to make sure that the fence is square to the table surface. If it isn't, use the two nylon set screws to make the appropriate adjustment. Remove the arbor nut and the flange to install your favorite saw blade. Drop the riving knife or blade guard in place while you're at it. With the blade secured, place a straight edge across both the blade and the riving knife. If the riving knife is not in line with the blade, remove the knife and use a 3mm hex wrench to adjust the set screws in the floating clamp block. It may take a few tries, but eventually you should be able to have the riving knife in perfect alignment with the blade. Attach the motor cover by pushing the hinge pins down into the cabinet hinges. Of course, you'll need to install the proper plug on the end of the cord coming out of the switch before you can fire up the saw for the first time. And since the cast iron is pretty raw at this point, use a paste wax or spray wax to buff the surface and protect it from rust. And with that, this PM2000 is ready to rock and roll.